We have all probably heard the term fake it till you make it. It's become like ubiquitous everywhere. Essentially, it's like the advice that anybody gives you whenever you're wanting to start business or wanting to get into like any kind of academic pursuits. You are supposed to just present a certain level of bravado and hubris and confidence, even if you don't actually have it. And I think that there are good reasonings behind most people giving that advice. I think it's fine to say, hey, even if you're not feeling super confident, put on a certain level of confidence while you're kind of like going throughout learning this thing or doing this thing, and eventually you will make it to where that confidence is legitimate. I think that's fine, kind of. I think what it's created, though, especially on Twitter and on YouTube and on a lot of other social media spaces, is an environment where we're not questioning why people are as confident as they are in their own skill set, and we're not requiring people to prove it. And one of the primary places you can see this is a thing called Teapot. Teapot, or that place on Twitter, or those people on Twitter, is kind of a space of generically like right wing libertarian software engineers or STEM folks. And typically they have anime profile pictures. I do too. Perfectly fine to have an anime profile picture. They typically have something in their bio about being cracked or being on effective accelerationism. It's kind of silly. It's a really silly culture. But there's some interesting people there. They're fun to follow. It's just created a pretty bad environment of LARPing. Now, what LARPing is, there's kind of like the realistic explanation of what LARPing means, which is kind of like when people go to Ren fairs or Renaissance fairs where they dress up as like sword fighters and things like that. And, they pretend to be sword fighters and pretend to be living in this like, Renaissance era time. It's really, really cool, super wholesome, have no problem with people who are like doing the generic form of LARPing. But the colloquial usage of that term is like, you're just faking being part of this thing. You're faking being a really, really good software engineer. You're faking being a really, really good AI researcher. And you're doing that so that like people respect you. And that's lame. And that's really, really become common. You've got people who are just consistently LARPing as like this 22-year-old savant on Twitter who's like better at programming than Carmack and a better AI researcher than Ilya. And like the problem is there's no substance there. The problem is we've kind of let people get away posting like they're really, really good with no proof. We're not asking them to prove it. We're just assuming that they are. And I'm not telling you to go out on Twitter and ask everybody for proof that they're good. What I'm telling you is whenever you're looking at somebody who like insists on Twitter or on YouTube that they're a business god, that they make all of this money through their business and they've got Stripe screenshots and they've built all of these different apps, and you just don't see them because they're closed source and like NDAs and all of this other shit. It's like, okay, why are we taking their word for granted there? That's the mistake that I think people are making. What we're doing is we're looking at any kid with like 22-year-old cracked software engineer in their bio, and we're assuming, oh, they're probably actually that good. We're seeing people shitpost about AI on Twitter, and we're like, oh, they probably know what they're talking about. We're seeing people like dunk on actual researchers when the only thing that they have as proof that they're even remotely intelligent is like a shitty ChatGPT wrapper. And again, I've put out videos about how I think ChatGPT wrappers are fine, but I don't think that they're great credentials to prove that you're like some savant engineer. I think that if the only thing you have to show for like how intelligent you are is maybe like a implementation of an AI paper that you read once and like a couple of ChatGPT wrappers that you've got, popped up on Vercel, I'm not going to trust that you talking about AI and heavy research, like heavy, like state of the art stuff. I'm not going to trust that you know what you're talking about just based on that, which is fine if people aren't shit posting on Twitter like they're significantly more intelligent than the average person. The issue that I have here is not that it's not that people aren't intelligent. I'm fine with people not being intelligent. I'm not particularly intelligent in a lot of different areas. I'm not even that great of a developer. My problem is that these people who have the same level of skill as me, or like probably less, acting like they're significantly more intelligent and more capable than they actually are. That's the issue that I have, because it fools people. It creates a really nasty environment of like, essentially there's 1,000 people saying that they're good and there's like 2 good engineers in there, maybe, if that. You've got this kind of culture where there's an aesthetic of being a good engineer, but nothing actually backing it up. You get all of the benefits of being like an aesthetically good engineer without ever actually having to be one, to put in the work to actually do the thing. So what I'm asking is that if you're a really good engineer or think you're a really good engineer, approach the community with some humility. Maybe abandon the hubris a little bit. Maybe whenever you're interacting with people, just act like a normal human being. You don't have to act like these dorks who have, early 20s in their bio and talking about how great they are and constantly shitting on like actual researchers. Just be a normal human being. And if you're somebody else who's trying to like consume content, question everything. Whenever somebody says they're really, really good, assume that they're not and let them prove otherwise. What I said in the Twitter post that I put out about this is don't put people on a pedestal, let them climb up there themselves. If they make it up to your pedestal, then they're probably good. But whenever you're looking at somebody's bio or you're looking at their posts, and the only thing they really have is rage bait, which is just stuff that's meant to make people angry. So stuff like NeoVim versus IDEs, or if it's political stuff, that's kind of become like the new meta within like the teapot space, is like, let's talk about immigration. Like engineers have any idea what they're talking about in politics. If they're talking about that, or if they're talking about language wars constantly, or if they're talking about how shitty OpenAI is compared to like some other company that they believe is better, start to question like, hey, is this person actually intelligent? Is this person as intelligent as they want me to believe? If there is a major mismatch between how intelligent they want you to think they are and the proof that you can find of how intelligent they actually are, you can kind of make a couple of decisions based on that, on how you consume content. I think we need to be way more careful about who we assume actually has credentials in this community. We need to be way more careful about like the folks that we look up to from a business perspective. There's a lot of folks out there who have done some interesting stuff in the past, and they've built some interesting businesses, and they deserve some level of credential. There's a lot of people out there who have built businesses based on talking about how to build businesses. They've got classes, but they've got no content. They've got classes, but they've got no like actual substance that they're putting out. They've got content, but they don't really have anything that they've actually done. And we look up to these people as like business gods when all they're really doing is synthesizing information, which isn't bad. That's a thing, but like we're putting them on the wrong pedestal there. I don't know. Maybe this is ranty, but my point being is I've seen a lot of folks get kind of fooled by the wrong role models. Obviously, at this point in time, there are no role models that exist in the world. They're all dead. All of the role models that we used to have done horrific shit, and we can't accept them anymore. But the folks that we've started to look up to on Twitter, on YouTube, all of these content creators, we're really not being careful with them either. And I think that's a mistake. That's about it. Take it easy. Peace.